Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It's about that time. It's time for the feedback loop. End of the week, and got Katie in here, got James in here, Rebecca. Hope that everything's going well with you. I got your note. Um, it's you know, best you can have the best plans in the world, and something like comes along and just who finds a poisonous snake? Like, who saw that coming? Um, so our thoughts are with you and the fam. Glad to know it's just a scare though. Yeah, but we're gonna jump in. We're gonna get this started because we've got a lot of things to get to today. Very busy day. I'm gonna see Eve. Gonna see Luigi. A little later today. On the actually might have a couple more meetings. I need to check that afternoon schedule as well. But let's go ahead and jump on in. So we're going to start here with James, and this is James's Squawk project. And I do think it's interesting to kind of pay attention to where we started at with this project. This was where Squawk was just a few days ago, and it's interesting to see the evolution of a project, because you know as we move forward with our work, it's always important to be able to show somebody, here's version 1, here's version 2, here's version 3. I think James has done a really good job of leveraging the fact that Figma has these controls within it to create duplicates of his work so that you can see the evolution over time. So if you're working on a project, utilizing pages in this way is actually a really smart way to do it. Let's go ahead and come over to the 26th, which is where we are now. And I know I'm gonna open up this because I know James has a I can't actually read it that way. I'm gonna come over to his switch things around here, and let's get into James's page. So he reworked the header, reduced the size of the triangles and the play buttons, reduced the size of one large icon next to the eye, added a label for podcast tab above the story bar, and then added the following view from podcast tab. So let's go look around here and see what we got. As usual, we've got so just kind of removing my extra tools. That's command backslash, by the way. Or is that command? No, it's command /. Sorry. Let's go ahead and look at this without the grid on. And right now, we've got this in a mode. I can see that it's much wider now, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and put this in play. I just want to kind of see it in action. Yeah, I would think that would be grabbable. It is. Oh, well, never mind. It's not set up in a prototype yet. So you have to basically link from one to the next. So once we have that, once this links to somewhere, like once you have another screen, then it'll be ready to go as far as the slide is concerned. Right now, it's probably not going to function that way. And this is kind of what I have on this other aspect. Let's look at this. That's interesting. Oh. Horizontal scrolling. We got to switch the scroll behavior. I got it. Oh, if I can actually get to Okay, so we go to prototype, horizontal scrolling now. Yeah, there we go. Although there's you can see a problem right away. This following on Twitter shouldn't move with it. That should be in. That should be out of that frame, so that just the elements here move, much like this right here. Okay, so that's just more of a prototype thing. The other thing is I've got this line. Oh, the line is also grouped in there. The line shouldn't move. I could make an argument that this line you should have just as much space. So give more space to the top, more padding or margin above that line so that it's even around, and then this would be on point. But this is still far and away stronger than where you were um, just a couple of days ago. So good job there. Um, so this is navigation. So you've got this following list. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at this. This was an area that we kind of hammered on last time, and it's very easy to see now that you've got a lot to work with now. You did add a few things. Oddly enough, you changed subscribe or to the check mark. You also added the star rating, the number of subscribers, um, and then and you put the podcast. It looks like you put the podcast title up at the top, which is smart. Also, this you got a little more room to run, with the width. So this is we talk about this. We talk about this in terms of you know not not backing yourself into a corner when it comes in regard to content that's available. Um, and yeah, I website addresses, people's names, menu items. These are all things that have variable links. Okay, and it's best to design them with the flexibility to go along. So that's a definite good move. And you can see like you get into the same issue right here. So many of these icons are being cut off, and it's just because or the names are being cut off. And it's just because you have a very small space to work with. So again, the adjustment of this icon so that this feels more like a unit, I think is really smart. Uh, the shrinkage of the play button so that the triangle is not it's more appropriately sized for the shape that it's in is smart. Um, yeah, this is way better. I I hope that you know I'm seeing a lot of improvement here, James. I hope that this is as you're going along and going through this, you're recognizing like, hey, you know what? Um, I I should design with a strong grid structure to hold these elements together so they feel like a unit. Um, you know, I'm hoping that as you move forward and you begin to build a new project, that this sort of experience of having to break it apart and rebuild it um, allows you to shortcut a lot of these like visual. A lot of this is purely visual. These adjustments that you've had to make. What I'd rather happen is we be able to get directly into the testing of your ideas um, through prototyping and user testing, and focus more on, okay, does this flow make sense? What tools are missing to allow the user to do the things that I want them to do, and not, oh, it needs to be 8 pixels here and all those type of adjustments. I really do value function, but this is far closer to meeting the criteria for the company that you're applying to, as far as from a visual perspective. But I would go through and make that slight adjustment. I would adjust this so that it's able to scroll without moving, and then I would like to see the flow here. I'd like to see a user test from you. Set the prototype up, test for certain aspects, like as you're going through, like what screen would I really be starting with? That's something that I think would be valuable to have. It is interesting, oddly enough, CouchBot is firing, but it's firing in a very weird order this morning. All right, I'm going to deal with CouchBot after this. When you post things in the overnight and then they show up like 12 hours later, it's kind of odd. All right, so James, I think you're on the right path here. I think it's a logical time to jump into prototyping. I would say that I would love to see this in. I'd love to see these scrolling in your prototype. And just to go back to this scroll example, I do think that when you're looking at this, this is my vertical scroll example. You'll see that there's a lot of elements to the bottom. This is following the same concept. If I come back over to the frame, I've got vertical scrolling set as an overflow behavior for this because it's going to move up and down. I've got horizontal scrolling set as an overflow behavior because this is moving side to side. So in your prototype, I'm hoping to see things like this and this. Okay, and if we can do that, I think you'll be in a really good spot to do testing. These are things that I think you might have previously done in like a ProtoPie. I don't necessarily know if you have to go that route. I think you can do them right here in Figma if you'd like to, and it's just easier to use and manipulate because you can do that sort of stuff here now. So just something to keep in mind. Let's go over to Katie's wireframing. So met with Katie yesterday, and she is busy in the James and Katie are both West Coasters. James is living a dual life between Seattle and San Jose right now, and Katie is under lockdown down in Los Angeles. But it is it's good to see. It's good to see Katie taking coaching so well, because when we saw Katie's wireframes earlier this week, there was no usage of grids happening, and the space, everything was just floating in space, and the scale was off. And now I can see Katie really beginning to find her way with regard to how to structure the site, how to understanding how space. Oops, I don't want to tear her page apart. Understanding how space actually works in a site. I'm seeing great consistency screen to screen. I do know that she's still building on her profile and shopping cart and checkout, so she's got pages to work on still. But if there's a quote in the chapter on grids, there's a quote that or a tweet, if you will, from some designers talking about I wish I would have learned in the first year of design school that 90% of this is just lining stuff up to the grid. and your designs are like 100% better. That's probably the combination of both tweets. But the fact is the moment that you get to a point where you're comfortable with the grid is the moment that your designs move forward. And I really do think that Katie has done a good job. I can tell that she's following along with our discussion yesterday with components. Although I would say that like we've still got this spacing now, and I know that you've adjusted things. This is where I would suggest coming back into the component and let's resize that so that it now fits. The component now fits, the frame now fits to the component. That's probably going to make some adjustments on your actual wireframe. Actually, didn't do too bad. It just moved the frame, which is great. But this makes it much easier for you to go through and do the little align work. And because right now these are all, and these are pretty close. But what I really like to do is I like to focus on getting this in alignment, and then I can tell that like this one is, if you look at the Y here, it's 570, and this one's at 574. But if I would just grab them and use my alignment tool here, that can bring them all together. But when your frame for the component isn't adjusted, and we talked about this, then you're going to have trouble. So this is 882, but that's this is off like by 0.52. Mine, or I can't even see it change actually. But it's pretty clear that you copied this and moved it down. And we also talked about how if you start off with everything uniform, everything cascades down from that. So you can eliminate all the little errors pretty early in the work. So I'm just looking at this, and that's 0.52. So yep, it's in this one too. But that's minor stuff. That's just alignment, okay? The other thing that I wanted to point to is, and we talked just a bit about this, is this concept of these components. And for this, I'm going to actually come over to your component. So you've got this filter options, okay? And what you want to do is you want to have a version of this. Oh, you do. You've got one right there. Okay. So you've got filter options. Let's take a look at this real quick. I'm going to come over to wireframe. I'm going to say I want this to be filter option button. And then on click, it should take me to filter options. And then if I click something else here, I can go back. But this is how we begin to animate, like, oh, I need filter options. The other question I have is, when filter options is selected, does this up here change in some forms to alert me that the drop down has occurred? It seems like there should be something to indicate that, but by and large, the big thing is it was what you have. You have these options showing the change. The one and I'm going to take that prototype linkage away. The one thing I want to look at here on your components is there's still this extra space, and I want to know what it's coming from. Doesn't look like it's coming from anything, so I'm just going to resize it, and there is still something throwing this just a bit off, and I'm not completely sure what it is. There's the frame. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see where that little edge is coming into play, but it's definitely there. Yeah, well, it's fine. It's fine. It's better than where we were just a second ago. Um, you don't have that overlap over this side, but it does make it hard to align with the edge here if you're constantly having to nudge over. So I might actually redraw this component just to eliminate that little issue. And you know, I can't I can't see it. I can't see where the error is in the component itself. It could be like there's just one pixel over somewhere in the frame that I didn't look at that. I didn't spend 20 minutes on it, but there's some error somewhere in that frame. So I might redraw that component just to make it to where I can just like drag it on the page and like have it snap into place really quickly. Over here, this is where I think you're still working through some elements here. If we put this into play mode and we look at this, and we're going through, like, this feels a lot better, but I think that I really believe this needs a lot of work. Okay, the nutritional facts thing, it's just too big for the space that you have. It's literally the largest thing, largest type on the entire page. I think the nutritional facts should probably come down in size. I would encourage you to just, instead of using this image, to actually create the design that you want to see here. And it's probably going to be it's probably not going to be this long when it's all said and done. So I would definitely like move away from this cereal box sort of presentation here. And yeah, and there's another thing to this. I might actually begin bringing some of these elements up in size. And much like I was talking with James yesterday about the shapes here, if add to cart is here, this is probably where I would drag the star over. You got 2 stars there. This is also where I would, drag this over. Oh, looks like we got some duplication going on here. Okay, but this is where all of this information gets wider, and I'm trying to make a unit out of this. The same thing goes for this photo. If this add to cart is really here, this photo, I want this photo to be part of that unit. Additionally, I'd want this photo to looks like we got multiples. I want this photo to line up with the grid. So there's some grid work to be done. There's some size considerations to be made. I'm going to undo this because, again, I want this to be your work, not just the things that I moved around. But I would encourage you to, okay, now let's make units out of these items and let's make them aligned to the grid. Let's come back over to the home page. While you've done a good job of creating units out of this, and I would still come down to the footer here, and okay, let's get fresh market over here to begin at the edge of the grid, and let's drag this line over I'd make those adjustments. I would also come up here, and for fresh market meals, like this really feels like something that should be significantly larger, like twice as large, twice as big, three times, not 3 times as big, probably not, um, but significantly larger than it was, because I need an anchor for this page. I need a place, something to quickly draw my attention. Obviously, the photo is going to do some of that, but I need the text to do that as well. When we get into prototype mode and we start looking at this, I would say that overall, this hero unit that you have is probably going to be a little larger. This is a lot of type to be on the screen at the same time, and this is really where I begin to, let's go to Freshly. And Freshly is, okay, this is just a prepared meals site. I'm just going to click on there. Notice that they've got a nav up here. They've got a hero unit. There are some elements showing down here, so you can kind of see what's coming, but you've got to really scroll to pull that into view, and the other stuff goes away. So for you, when we're looking at this, I'm looking for this to basically take up like this much space. And if you want to have the why choose us and whatnot peeking up above here, like, I think that's fine. And I can see the 1, 2, 3. That's fine. But I don't want to see, I want to see that peeking up above the line, not this. I want this to kind of have its own world. And there's 2 ways to do that. One is to come through and say, okay, well, this is going to have more padding. Okay, or maybe it doesn't have any padding at all. Maybe that. And when I say it doesn't have any padding, maybe it's just, you give extra space up here, and you move this. You continue moving this down until you get somewhere that feels more like you have a logical starting spot for your page. This is probably still a little bit, but you've got some work to do here. Long story short, you've got some work to do here on the home page before this sizing or spacing really begins to work for you. So I'm going to pull that back. So there's some work to do here. Remember to not only align to the grid, but also to align elements together. Utilize these alignment tools up here, and then as you're working through these elements, be sure to make these elements work as a unit. Okay, much like we did. We work through this. This works like a unit. You've taken it and kind of morphed it and made it your thing. That's good. We need to do the same thing for these elements as well. Okay, and then you can get into the stuff as you go. But I am saying that grid should work for the page, but it should also work for the individual elements that make up the assets that appear on the page. Okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's where we're going to wrap it today. Just trying to check and make sure that we... yeah, Katie's already checking in. Yeah, Katie's talking about this work-life balance thing now that you're working from home, and if you've never done that before, if you've always like went to an office, and when you're at the office you're really hyper focused, when you get home you're not focused on the other thing. Working from home can be a transitional period. It definitely can be something that you have to kind of what is the mix? How can I be successful at doing this thing? And it takes time. I would suggest, when I was first getting into the mode of working from home, I would use a Pomodoro timer. And a Pomodoro timer is just like where you say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, I'm not going to check my email. I'm not going to hop on Twitter. I'm not going to watch a YouTube thing. I'm just going to do this one specific task. I'm going to write for 30 minutes. I'm going to edit for 30 minutes. I'm going to code for 30 minutes, whatever it is. And I can do things related to that, but I cannot, I'm not going to go to the fridge and get a glass of water. I'm not going to turn on the TV or play a video, whatever it is, whatever your vice is. For me, it's always, I'm not going to check Twitter. Okay. The Pomodoro timer will reward you with 5 minutes at the end of your 30 minutes where you can do whatever you want. And then it'll go off again and you got to get back to work. So Pomodoro timer, check it out. There's many apps out there. I'm sure there's sites where you can set it and just let it run on a web browser. But that's how I would help train myself for this thing. And then there's other hacks as well. I've heard from a lot of people, I get so tired when I'm working at home. Go do some push-ups. Go do some weight resistance squats, and it's not so much about fitness. I'm not asking that you go do a CrossFit workout in the middle of your day. But for me, sometimes when I'm getting tired, I'll go do 10 push-ups just to get the blood flowing. Okay, because I know that a lot of people they don't like to leave their homes right now, and I totally get that. But you can do things in your house to wake yourself up. Go grab a glass of water. Go walk to the fridge, get a glass of water if you're getting tired. But everybody's going to have their own little hacks. Those are just a couple of mine. And I hope that the other thing, by the way, have some fresh fruit around. Don't reach for the candy or the cookies. Have some grapes, have an apple. Try to eat a little healthier if you're working from home. It's you'll feel better for it, but in the long run, what you'll probably find is that if you have a habit of snacking, you're going to snack at home. Keep some healthy stuff around. All right, and I hope that is beneficial to you as it has paid dividends for me as well. But that's all I got for today. Chris Courtney, New Pragmatic. I hope, I'll see many of you this afternoon. I've got sessions with a number of students. But otherwise, I will chat with all of you again on Monday. Be healthy, be safe, and I'll see you then. Take care.